Well, this is a nice turnout for Bakersfield, a place where people work hard for a living. Thanks for taking time out of your Monday morning. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. On occasion, you'll hear me on KERN, on Current Radio, filling in for Inga, who says hello. She's on the air right now, so she can't be here. But when you leave, call her show and tell her how we did. The reason why we're doing this trip, this is the second Tea Party Express. Last one we did a couple of months ago. 38 cities, this one also 38 cities, 38 different cities across the country. The reason why we're doing this is right on the side of the bus. It's kind of down to Judgment Day. We're 1 year from the midterm elections, the 2010 elections, where we get to pass judgment on the job and the people who are doing the job in Washington. And we want to make sure that they hear us. Do they hear us, you think? No. You want to make them hear us? Yeah. Give out a big listen, Washington. Oh, that ain't loud enough. They can't hear that past the Sierra. One more time.
Listen, Washington!
That's better, because they're going to hear us, and they are hearing us. The mainstream media are following us. We're getting attacked by some people on both sides of the aisle, so that means we're making an impact. And the reason why we're trying to make an impact, and the reason why we want them to hear us, is because we have a nation, the greatest nation in the world, with the greatest system in the world, that has allowed this to become the greatest nation in the world, is under attack. We now live in a society controlled by people who don't believe in convincing us to their way of thinking. They skip right to coercing us to their way of thinking. A new crime coming down the road called LWI, living without insurance. Obamacare will carry a 1-year prison sentence, maximum, if you don't have it. Think about that for a second. If you don't have health insurance, a 1-year sentence in jail. Well, you'll get all the health insurance, I guess, that you could possibly need. That's the extreme. What's more likely will happen is they'll pluck you for the fines. Thousands and thousands of dollars a year. Like Massachusetts, where it's illegal to live without health insurance, and the poorer you are, the more you're going to pay in fines because you can't afford the premium. So they fine you, and that's enforced through the Revenue Department. You ever try to appeal anything to the IRS? Anybody here ever been audited? I have. A lot of fun. They don't believe you. There's an agenda out there. There's no man behind a curtain. There's no, internet. I'm a big conspiracy theorist. I don't have a tinfoil hat or anything like that. But what we have is a political system now that has devolved from opposing political parties to those what gut and those what provide. We're the ones who provide. We're the ones who make it possible for Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid to fly around the world. We're the ones who make it possible for Michelle Obama to complain about, the imposition of having to fly in a private jet to a party to try to get the Olympics to Chicago. Oh, the poor baby. How does she put up with it? We provide that. And what do they give us in return? They give us more rules, more regulation, higher taxes, less freedom. They tell us we don't have the choice to choose whether or not we want health insurance coverage from A or B, but we've got to pay for whatever they give us. That's not America. We've got a president going around the world apologizing for the nation that in the last decade alone freed 50 million Muslims in Afghanistan and on Iraq, and which this very day is still shedding blood in Afghanistan, where our troops were promised reinforcements by the man who is now waffling and saying, "I'll think about it." Anything wrong with that picture? I've been on the radio 30 years, all over the place. The last 10 here in California and nationally. And over that time, I've been coming from Boston originally, as I do. I've got a double whammy against me. I'm from Boston. I live in California, so we get to those big flat rectangular states. I duck a lot. But I've got an inside view of the way this whole thing works, and I sat down and I wrote an entire book about the socialist agenda, what they've got in mind for us, and how it's not a conspiracy. It's kindred interests traveling side by side. Somebody whose livelihood depends on Harry Reid remaining Senate president in Washington, somebody whose job depends on Nancy Pelosi remaining in the United States Congress. Not bad people, but boy, they're going to turn out to vote for her. Then you've got a few bad people. You got the enemies of this country who use our own system against us. You've got people who are encountering some counter-protesters around the country. We encountered some in LA and San Diego yesterday, who don't believe in the American system of government. They believe in socialism, they believe in collectivism, but they're perfectly willing and happy to show up at our events and use their constitutional rights to undermine the Constitution. Kind of like Al Gore in 2000 trying to get the Constitution declared unconstitutional when he went to court over the election. That's what we're fighting. We have different issues, each and every one of us. You look around these signs, all handmade, for the most part. Different issues all over the map. I was reading one of the left-wing blogs yesterday, and they were ripping on us. They don't know what they stand for. There were people there about abortion. There were people there about guns and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's the point. That is the point. All these different issues, all these different opinions. And if I were to throw out a talk show hot topic here right now, no matter what it would be, gun control, abortion, you name it, I'm going to get people arguing all sides of that issue. I've seen that across the country. A pro-lifer standing next to a Planned Parenthood, an NRA standing next to a gun freak who doesn't want guns. But you know what? They come together because the system that allows them to believe and argue their points of view and exercise their rights is under attack from within, and they're not going to let that happen any more than the men and women overseas making sure it doesn't happen from outside. Are you with us? You're going to take your country back. You're going to take your country back from the socialists. This is not a Democrat, it's not a Republican thing, it's not any one particular political personality. If you think it's an individual or a party, you're not paying attention. This is ideological. This is America under attack from its own government. We're not going to let it happen. In 2010, November 2nd, 2010, Judgment Day at the polls, folks, and we will be there. Got a little hometown flavor today. I saw Ben out there a couple of minutes ago, and I know Doug's parents. Hi, how are you? I'd like to. We got my home girl. My home girl. We swiped her up in Sacramento. Ladies and gentlemen, Deborah Johns.
Thank you, Mark. You know, when I was just giving an interview to your news stations, they wanted to know, why is it important to come here to Bakersfield? And it is important to come to Bakersfield because Bakersfield represents the heart of small-town America, and this is a farming community. And we need to put pressure on the people in Sacramento to get that water turned back on. Right? Yeah. Because Bakersfield is a farming community. You employ people. There are small business owners here who create the jobs for America. Not like what President Obama promised when he said he was going to create jobs. Well, the only jobs he created was for the 45 czars who gave money to his campaign. He did not create jobs for small-town America, right? We need to let Sacramento know that this is the Golden State and it needs to not become the Dust Bowl state. Right, folks? The governor has the ability to turn the water back on, and I do not know why he's not doing it. But it is important to be here for you, to encourage you, to let you know that by you coming out and meeting like this, by sending your letters, your faxes, your emails, your phone calls, makes a difference. Because President Ronald Reagan said it best when he said, most conservatives are meat eaters and retreaters who would rather go home at the end of the day after working hard and be frustrated sitting in their easy chairs yelling at the TV. Well, folks, sitting and yelling at our TVs for 45 years has gotten us where we are today. And you cannot be the silent majority anymore. You've got to be the loud and clear, strong voice to tell your politicians you are not going to take it anymore. This is your country. You have the voice. You've got the power by the power of your vote. And if they're not going to listen to you, then it's time to vote them out of office, right? We don't care whether they are a Democrat or a Republican. We care that they are listening to the Constitution and they are listening to the will of the people. Because the Constitution begins with, we the people, not we the government, right? You know, folks, if our men and women in uniform who serve this country to make it a great, free, and independent nation can serve and defend it across the world, then we've got to honor their service and sacrifice of what they've given us here at home. And that's our freedoms of